The podcast you're about to listen to may contain random lines from musical theater, terrible attempts at regional accents, and a sincere discussion about mental health. You have been warned. Are you ready to start singing with your feet? Formidable! Allez, c'est parti! Non, nous ne sommes pas fous, nous ne sommes pas ivres, nous sommes juste dans la joie. Une joie profonde, nos cœurs elle inonde. Cette joie, elle vient du ciel. Non, nous ne sommes pas fous.
Welcome to Sing With Your Feet. My name is Lily Fields, and I'm going to be your fairy godmother for the next half hour or so. This week, we are going to finally talk about that last step in wardrobe therapy, the one that naturally comes once we have come to understand that our clothes in our closets are not just what we wear on our bodies, but they are a reflection of who we think we are, who we want to be, or are vestiges of a life that we no longer have. When clothes are a reflection of who we think we are today, we wear them. When clothes are who we think we want to be, we hold on to them and we enjoy them. But there is another group of clothes in our closet that maybe we loved when we bought them, but there is something that keeps us from actually wearing them. We like them enough to keep them around, but unless something is done to them, we know we will never wear them. But the clothes that are from another season of our life, whether a career or our carefree student days or our happy, svelte, child-free existence days, or clothes that remind us of a specific negative experience, a fight, a sickness, an accident, a bad decision, those are things that we would be better off eliminating. Remember, where our treasure is, our heart will be too. If this is true, and I believe that it is, it means that there is a little piece of my heart reserved for being concerned about these clothes in my possession that remind me day in and day out of a time that I would rather forget about. So decluttering is what will help me clear out my heart so that I can redistribute that space in there for things that matter more. Decluttering. Oh, how I love that word. Decluttering? Would you define that, please, Lily Fields? Oh, well, of course I will, Cinderella. To declutter, it means to remove unnecessary items from an overcrowded or untidy space. There are dozens of methods for decluttering, many of them which, if you are extremely motivated, you can get amazing results from in a weekend. The KonMari method, for example, which is outlined in Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, is designed to be a once-in-a-lifetime tidying festival. I completely love everything about the KonMari method, but let's be honest, who has the time to bring everything they own out and look at it one by one in one weekend? I have tried the KonMari method at multiple different times in my life since I had children, and it is not a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. As a matter of fact, I heard a few weeks back that Marie Kondo herself has kind of given up on being tidy since her third child was born, which made me feel perhaps like she is human after all. The KonMari method is not a baby to be thrown out with the bathwater, though. There are some very, very good ideas for working through our attachment to an item. 2 points, that is the sparking joy and thanking an item for the joy it brought us. Remember, Marie Kondo, she tells us that when we hold on to an item and we hold it close to our chest, to ask ourselves, does this item spark joy? Yes, it's a nebulous concept. I completely agree. But there's this other part I really like that she says, when you go to discard an item, you need to hold it in your hand, touch it, and say, thank you. At least thank you for the joy that you brought me when I bought you. Or thank you for the joy that you brought me when I was wearing you at my baby's birth. Whatever that is, thanking the item and discarding it. It's a way to bring closure, and I really, really, really like that about it. There's another method worth noting that's called Swedish death cleaning. In this method, Margareta Magnusson tells us to ask ourselves who is going to take care of all of this stuff once I'm gone. And then we proceed to make our life easier for the loved ones who will be responsible for cleaning out our homes and sentimental items by dealing with it ourselves. She maintains that our lives can run more smoothly without all the stuff that we dredge around with us, and that without all the abundance, we might have more time to actually get things done. And most importantly, she says that doing this kind of mega decluttering helps us come to terms with our own mortality. I think this is great. I think about my husband's insistence on keeping around our children's every single drawing and craft, and the bins and bins and bins of them that he has kept. Will our children actually want to deal with those when and if something happens to us? Probably not. I am not a particularly nostalgic person when it comes to that kind of thing, but on the other hand, I have notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of diaries that I have written over the years, which I have kept. For some reason, I don't know. Maybe I think that someday someone will want to publish the collected works of Lily Fields. But the thought of moving them one day, if we were to ever move across Europe and back to the US, it seems rather silly. So Swedish death cleaning is a thing, but I guess so legitimately is saying, well, what would happen if I had to move across the country or move across the Atlantic Ocean? It's another really good question to ask ourselves, I guess. But there is another person I want to highlight, whom I love because she is realistic and down to earth and funny. Her name is Dana K. White, and she is the patron saint of slobs and disorganized homemakers. She has written several books on the subject of decluttering, and she has a blog and a podcast that's called, aptly, A Slob Comes Clean. Her journey is an inspiration, and she has millions of time-tested little ideas. Her simple questions make it instantly obvious if an item can be decluttered or not. It doesn't rely on joy or the consideration of our own mortality. It's practical. Personally, I believe that decluttering is a gradual process. Some things are easy and really practical and easy to be dealt with, yes. Other things are harder, and maybe they require us to dig deep, or maybe they require us to hold it close to our heart and ask ourselves if they spark joy. And others, although an item may spark joy for us, it could be an encumbrance for the people who come after us and would make everyone's life easier if we were to just declutter them now. Keep in mind that in our time together, we are going to be talking about decluttering our closets and our own closets. But the skills we hone through the dealing of our own closets will help us better handle other areas of our homes and maybe even help us to help others in our families who need to declutter too. When my firstborn came into the world, a friend gave me a basket of baby clothes from when her children were little. Many of those clothes were too big for the baby that first year, so I stored them in a closet along with a box of pre-pregnancy clothes. Unbeknownst to me, or to the friend, that basket was infested with moths. By the time my eldest was 8 months old, I was already pregnant again, so I didn't go looking for those pre-pregnancy clothes right away. And the next thing I knew, more than 2 years had passed. I went to look for some of those children's clothes and maybe a pre-pregnancy thing or two, and I discovered that everything had been attacked by moths. Although I wish a moth infestation on no one, let me tell you, there is no greater impetus to declutter than to discover moths. The panic of finding the telltale sandy deposits, the weird little webby kind of thing, and the holes, please don't get me thinking about those holes. There is nothing that has me running for a trash bag faster than discovering moths. Now, when you are faced with a recurring infestation like that, it becomes very easy to part with items that have been affected. You just want that stuff out. Now, what if our grief was as visible as a moth infestation? What if the painful memories that are attached to our clothes, the ones in our closet, were as visible as moth eggs? What if what the regular contact with clothes that will never fit again does to our self-esteem was as obvious as holes in our clothes? Wouldn't we immediately get rid of those things? Would we want to stop the infestation from spreading? We would declutter them immediately and without a second thought. Well, I believe that many of us have the psychological equivalent of a moth infestation in our closet. Once we can come to terms with this, we will be able to declutter much more easily. Decluttering remains a gradual process, and today I want to talk through those stages. So here you are. You started your closet inventory a month or so ago, so you have a pretty good idea about what you wear most often. Sure, it's only been a month, so you haven't gotten into your out-of-season clothes yet, and you haven't had occasions to wear everything. That's not going to stop you from this first round of decluttering that we're about to do. The first round is the easiest, and it really shouldn't take very long. You're going to set a timer for 20 minutes. You're going to stand in your closet or stand in front of your armoire and rummage through your drawers and look for things that you say to yourself, why in the world is this even here? These things may be irreparably damaged, like with pit stains or other kinds of stains, or ruined with holes. These are things that you can honestly say you do not care what happens to them. And you wonder why in the world they are still in your closet or drawers anyway. Often bras and panties fall into this category, or socks, along with other accessories, maybe belts with, that got all messed up with holes, or shoes that have holes in them. Another category of these items may be things about which you say, I don't like this, and I never have, and I cannot imagine a future in which I will ever wear this. These things are ones that we may have picked up for super cheap as impulse buys. This is how I ended up with 5 black tank tops. I have a vivid memory of saying one day, oh, I could always use another black tank top when I saw it in a bargain bin. Well, that black tank top I bought that day, I may have worn it once because I very quickly discovered how much I hate the way it fits. Sometimes these items are gifts. I had a red cardigan my mother-in-law gave me. It never looked good on me. I rarely wore it. I love my mother-in-law, but I never loved that cardigan, and I could not imagine a future in which I would wear it. It was taking up space in my closet and in my heart. It was only the guilt of decluttering a gift that was holding me back at all. Then there are things about which we say, ugh, just looking at that makes me angry, or it makes me sad, or it reminds me of a situation, a fight, a humiliation, or something that I would just rather forget. I told you about this a long time ago, but for me, it was the sunshine yellow scarf I was wearing at the gynecologist's office when I learned that I was having a miscarriage, or the socks that I wore at the clinic. Or there was a really cute wrap top that I wore when I had a humiliating argument with a colleague. Just seeing those things in my closet or in my drawer, they would dredge up the grief, the humiliation, and I knew for a fact that I could never bring myself to wear those things again. So there are these items that we can, without much pain or thought, or even consideration, throw into a bag and get rid of them. Dispose of them how, Littlefields? You are very right to ask me, and we will get to that in next week's episode. But right now, I'm just asking you to take 20 minutes to get those things that we described out of your sight, preferably into a black trash bag so that you don't have to actually look at them anymore. In 20 minutes, you probably won't get through your whole wardrobe, but the beauty of this exercise is that it helps you build up your experience. I mentioned this already, but there is a euphoria that comes with decluttering. If you have the time and inclination, by all means, continue, but 20 minutes should be a good starting point. The next category is one I like to call, I love this, but... So this one, we are going to need 2 receptacles. One, our trusty black trash bag, and the other, a bin of some kind with a lid. This is where that column on our closet inventory that's called What I Love, What I Hate has been practiced for. This is where we reach into the seldom worn items and ask ourselves why we never wear this. There are a million potential answers as to why we love something. I love the color, I love the cut, I love the fabric of the actual garment itself. Or maybe it has good memories attached to it, the kind of metadata that's attached to the object. But if we never wear it, then we need to articulate why. Is it the wrong size? Either too big or too small? Is it too long or too short? Is it outdated or out of style? Is it irreparably damaged, but we love it too much to get rid of it? The I love this but things are harder to make that decision to throw into the black trash bag, but there might be a few that you can do that without a thought. The others, they're going to go into the bin with a lid. We're going to call this the bin with potential. Remember, we aren't doing this all at once. We are doing this in 20-minute or so increments. It's the kind of thing that we can do when we have a little bit of time, but we aren't waiting for the mythical swath of time when I have nothing else to do. Maybe you are actually scheduling time to do this, or maybe you just do it when you have some clothes in the dryer. It doesn't require any special tools, but it will temporarily add a black trash bag and a bin to your wardrobe for a while. I want to take a quick digression and talk about that bin with potential. We'll probably come back to this topic at another time, and we have talked about it once before briefly, but I want to give you an idea of what could possibly happen with the stuff in that bin. Let's imagine that you have finally filled up that bin of items that you love for some reason, but that you don't wear for a reason that you can actually articulate. Now comes the time when you need to ask yourself, can something be done to make this item wearable? This answer is easy if we're talking about sewing back a button or taking a hem. If that's all it takes, then these things might quickly return to your closet and become favorites again. But I don't want to project onto you. What if you aren't comfortable with a needle and thread? May I humbly suggest that you become so. You can easily search on YouTube for a tutorial on sewing on a button or taking a hem for complete beginners. The people who do those videos are saints. The satisfaction that comes from bringing an item that you yourself repaired back into your rotation cannot be underestimated. But if you yourself refuse to do the work, you could, theoretically, find a professional to do it for you. If the item of clothing is that important to you, and you like it that much, and this is the only thing holding you back, then it's worth fixing it. If you're more adventurous, what if something is too big? I heard from a friend recently who lost a lot of weight over the last year. She has a wardrobe full of clothes for her previous sized body. She said something really interesting, that she was afraid to get rid of the clothes that were too big, and I thought this was fascinating. The fact that fear entered into her vocabulary at that point, so I prodded a little, and I asked why fear. She said that she doesn't trust herself to keep the weight off. Now, that is no longer a wardrobe issue. This is a self-esteem issue. It's the kind of thing that she or anyone in this situation needs to grapple with. My first instinct to tell someone who is faced with this kind of fear is to take those clothes that don't fit anymore, put them all in a bin out of sight for a while, for a good, long while. I believe that no one needs to be reminded of their fears when they look at their closet. I cannot tell you that fears, especially not those fears, are not legitimate. Learning to trust ourselves is the work of an entire lifetime. But we don't need to be reminded of how we don't trust ourselves every time we look in our closet. So get those things out of sight. On the other hand, who is to say that even if the weight came back, that she would want to wear those clothes again? Styles change. Our bodies change too. So to the person who is struggling with trust issues when it comes to a recent weight loss, allow yourself to enjoy where you are. Trust yourself. Love yourself. Those are more important things to do than to decide whether or not to discard your clothes. Self-esteem issues are not closet issues. But here is what I would say. Inasmuch as we can make it a wardrobe issue, those older, too big clothes might still have potential to be things that you can wear with a little bit of creativity. If they are items that are beloved for their fabric or their color, well, they might be ripe for professional alterations so that they will fit the new body that you're in. And if you found after sewing on those buttons or taking up that hem earlier that you like to mess around with a needle and thread, these might even become fodder for refashioning. Refashioning is when you take a piece of clothing and change it somehow, turning it into a one-of-a-kind piece that you will actually wear, and usually wear with a whole heck of a lot of pride. Again, this is not our topic today, but honestly, just go to Pinterest and look at men's shirt refashioning ideas or DIY t-shirt transformations, and you will see hundreds of sometimes even no-sew ideas. When you have something that you love for the fabric or for the color, but you might never wear again in its current state, but that it wouldn't kill you if you ruined it trying to make it wearable, then you have something that you could use to learn a new skill. For example, I have this gorgeous black skirt that a friend gave me. It was this weird puffy black thing when it arrived to me, and I have, after watching several video tutorials, undertaken to put pleats into it so that it will fit me. It will not kill me if I don't succeed, but I'm loving the process, taking it step by step. Or a dress that's several sizes too big. What would happen if you tried taking it at the seams just an inch or two? Just try it. If you loved the color or the fabric, that part isn't changing. You're just changing the shape of the garment. It requires some creativity and some daring. I mean, taking a pair of scissors to a perfectly wearable item of clothing can be scary, but it can also be exhilarating. And I've said this before, refashioning has become a way for me to channel some of my hormonal rage. Destroying some perfectly usable item and turning it into something else, it's safe, you know? It's not like the glass bowl I broke before dessert the other day because my hormones got the best of me. Seriously, cutting a new neckline into a t-shirt is not going to get anyone hurt. This also goes for things that are too small or maybe that are worn out. For example, if you love the fabric of a too small blouse, what if you cut it up and used it as a scarf or turned it into a headband? It's an idea. It keeps the blouse out of the landfill, and if the fabric brings you joy too, then it's a win. Clothes that are irreparable but still have a tiny bit of joy left in them for you, what if you were to turn them into no-waste cleaning rags? I have an old t-shirt that my mother-in-law gave me. I wore that thing until it was lacy with holes. I mended it I don't know how many times until I knew I had to stop wearing it because it was falling apart on my body. So I cut it into little round pieces and I sewed it to some old towels, turning it into makeup remover wipes. Now that t-shirt and its joy still is in my life, just in a different form. Remember, refashioning can be an amazing source of joy.
Elle me fait bondir et vibrer, crier. Elle me donne envie de chanter, danser. Elle pousse à agir, donner, partager. Et tout simplement de sourire aimer.
I admit that for people who don't see themselves as creatives or who don't care to learn how to use a needle and thread, this all sounds uselessly complicated. But there is a reason that I am dragging you kicking and streaming through the thought process of refashioning and repurposing your garments before I take you to the next phase of decluttering your closet. I said this already, but the money you spent on this clothing, which is now in a gigantic plastic bin, that's already been spent. That particular damage has been done. We've talked about how uncomfortable it is to come to terms with the vast sums of money that we have spent on clothing that we don't wear. It is such a waste, and I'm not finger pointing. I myself have had to forgive myself for this kind of wastefulness. Once we can forgive ourselves for our bad decisions, our thoughtless spending, our irrational impulses, we need to take a deep breath and understand that these items of clothing are now part of our treasure. And we need to become good stewards of that treasure. Now, we have a responsibility to make sure that these items get used or that we get them into the hands of people who will actually use them. There are some items that are very easy for us to declutter, and we can hand those off to a donation bin and never think about them again. I'm not saying that this is the best option, but it is an option that we will talk about in next week's episode. In many ways, a lot of those things, they bypass the self-forgiveness phase. And once they're out of our sight, they're out of our mind forever. May you never give them a second thought. But those things that we look at and that we still see some value in them, they're part of our treasure. And what we do with them is very important. If, because we were the ones who purchased them, that treasure can still be of benefit to us, either through refashioning or repurposing, then the money wasn't a waste. This is fantastic. Most of the items in my closet have undergone some kind of alteration. It makes them mine. It adds to their value because I put a little bit of me into them. The trial and error process of refashioning turns a little worn item of clothing into a learning opportunity. The risk of ruining it, yes, is always there, but so is the potential to learn something new and fabulous. The beauty of using items from your own closet is that you have already spent the money. There is no new waste that is going to happen. I have this little lightweight lacy sleeveless blouse that I bought on impulse years ago. It was so pretty, but I never wore it. When I did my closet inventory and I saw it there, I discovered that I would systematically avoid actually wearing it. So I asked myself, why? And the answer was that I hated the crew neck on it, and I hated where the armholes cut off on my shoulder. It was not flattering. It was about an inch too far from the shoulder to be cute. Yet I had bought it. I had spent real, not imaginary money on it. I loved the idea of this blouse. I loved the fabric of this blouse, but I hated how it looked on me. So I put it into my bin of items with potential. And then one day, I was browsing Pinterest and I saw a little detachable Peter Pan collar pattern. The model wore it over a lace blouse, and I instantly thought of that white blouse. What if I could figure out how to add a little Peter Pan collar to it? Would I wear it then? What would be the harm in trying? So I did. I took a stained antique pillowcase, which I had likewise been unable to part with. From a non-stained part of the pillowcase, I cut out the pieces from the Pinterest pattern, and lo and behold, I had solved the crew neck problem. Then, on a whim, I tried making a little cap sleeve to add some length at the shoulder, and it ended up freaking adorable. The potential was there for it to become something that I would love. It took quite a bit of time to figure it out, but now it has become a precious item in my wardrobe. The why of refashioning is to turn what we already own into things that we love, based on what we have already figured out that we don't love about it. Learning how to fix the problem is absolutely priceless. If we cannot make use of the items in our clothing by wearing them or refashioning them, but they still have value to us, then keeping them out of a landfill is a no-brainer. Next week, we are going to be talking about how to discard something without it landing in the landfill. And then we're going to start talking about how to make good decisions about our wardrobe. That's all next week. But here comes the segment of the podcast where I update you on my progress toward living out the golden rule this year. Remember how I told you that I had almost but not quite offered to watch one of my son's classmates when their teacher was going to be absent? I was saved by the bell at the last minute when the substitute teacher was found for the day. Yay! But in my mind, I had finally come to peace with the idea that I would invite that kid over. Well, something this week completely insane happened. I was having coffee with some friends, and one of them said, "Oh, Lily, I want to take your boys to this science museum in Strasbourg," which is a city that's about an hour by train away. She's a friend who has, on one previous occasion, taken my boys out to a dinosaur expo. She just picked them up and took them out. She loves us. She knows that we could sometimes use a break, and she did it. So I know that when she suggests this, she will totally do it. And that got me thinking about how doing for others what we would want done for us, well, there isn't a one-to-one relationship between doing something for someone else or having the intention of doing something for someone else and then having it done for us. But then sometimes there kind of is. It's not necessarily the same person doing the offering to watch my kids, but the result is the same. It's not the reason why I should do for others what I would want done for me, but there is this kind of pay it forward kind of thing that happens. It's kind of baked into the process. Random acts of kindness happen to us when we start performing them for others. All right, Cinderella, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. You're amazing, you're beautiful, and I am so honored that you took time out of your day to spend it with me. If you are standing in front of your closet and need some help making some decisions about what to declutter and what to keep, and you'd like a compassionate ear, oh, please let me know. You know it's my greatest pleasure to talk to my Cinderellas. You can reach me on Instagram at singwithyourfeet or by email lily@singwithyourfeet.com. Be great this week, Cinderella. I believe in you. I want to give an enormous thank you to 7 Productions here in Mulhouse, France, to my friend Jonathan Moulin for the use of the song La Joie as the intro and outro to the show, to Matt Kugler, who you can find on social media as Matt-K, who sang the amazing song that was written by Claude Ekwe. This is your fairy godmother signing off. Just remember, it is never too late to start singing with your feet.